A lock and chain secures his old analog meter with a clear notice, "Attention, do not install smart meter." The retired mechanical engineer says smart meters are dangerous.
The smart meter is not safe for the following reasons. Again, it emits high-frequency radio waves, and you don't feel them, you don't know about them, but they penetrate your body and they can cause health problems later on.
Slowinski says the radio waves go through concrete walls.
My bedroom is right next door, and it will emit high-frequency waves, so I'm worried about my health and my children's health.
And he has another concern.
They catch fire because there's very high voltage inside.
I can't say it, but I'm telling you, I know what's going to happen next. How much metal you have in your body will affect you when this thing happens. It has to do with frequency. Okay, so that I stay safe and I can come back and I stay alive, I want to tell you something. I will give you a hint to what he showed me. It's going to happen. And you have to get rid of these metals in your body. And it could happen tomorrow. It could happen, but they're going to say it's something else. You're going to have to do your own thinking about this. I don't want to get in trouble, but just stick a piece of foil in a microwave and picture that in your body. And now you know the devil's plan. Bottom line is, you got to get this out of your body.
In 1912, in Popular Mechanics, that wonderful medical journal, written so you can understand it, Dr. Wasserman, who invented the Wasserman test, which is that blood test a lot of his old guys had to take before he got married to get a license, detected syphilis. He had discovered a chemical substance which turned out to be selenium that will cure cancer in mice. He went on to say selenium has a selective action against cancer cells but didn't hurt healthy tissues. He went on to say that the cancer in mice is so similar to that in humans, he believed that an important advance had been made toward the cure of that veritable scourge, cancer in people. Well, in 1912, when this came out, we began to put selenium into animal foods. It stayed dormant in interest to medical doctors until December of 1996, 84 years later, when this came out. Dr. Larry Clark, medical doctor, and he did the gold standard in medical research. He did a randomized double-blind study in 1,300 people for 7 years. Half of them got 200 micrograms or 1/5 of a milligram of selenium. The other half got sugar pills or placebos. His final analysis showed taking selenium slashed the occurrence, not the risk, but slashed the actual occurrence of prostate cancer by 69%.
The majority of headaches, remember, headaches, guys, remember this. There are no pain receptors in the brain. Brain surgery is painless, right? So the brain is not capable of sending a pain signal. So where does the signal come from? It comes from the covering of the brain called the dura. The dura hates two things. It hates being stretched and it hates being contracted. 85% of all the migraine sufferers that I've ever treated had a simple clinical deficiency in sodium. I have them drink salt water, and their headaches go into permanent remission. Because we are not hydrated when we have water in our blood. We're hydrated when we have water in our tissues. And what determines whether or not water leaves the blood and enters the tissue is the sodium gradient. It's called osmosis. So if we actually restore the sodium gradient, that dura starts to relax and the pain goes away.
The majority of cancers are actually parasite infections, misdiagnosed as cancerous tumors, masses, cysts, period. So if you have uterine fibroids, if you have ovarian cysts, if you have thyroid goiters, if you have liver masses, lung lesions or masses, and you've been told that they're cancerous, or breast nodules, 80% of the time it's actually a parasite egg sac, not cancer or anything. But in America, they get zero education in parasitology, and they are told in America that parasites don't exist in America. However, the CDC says it's very common to get parasites in America. It's very odd that the CDC says that, but the medical schools don't teach that. But parasites are the number one cause of cancer in America. There is a second, very close cause of cancer, and they've known it since 1956. That is snake venom. It causes cancer. Turbo cancers is what they called it. And then these two scientists that figured it out, who were paid by the American Cancer Society to figure it out, were awarded the Nobel Prize in Medicine for figuring out how to make cancers really quickly with venom.
There's a reason we don't see those giant bells in churches anymore. They went to great lengths to destroy, bury, and replace the bells of the old world to hide the importance of acoustic resonance. See, these bells were a healing source. We're told they had to melt them down to create ammunition for the fake wars. The irony of the same bells used for healing to be used for the exact opposite purpose. And those of the past perfected the use of geometry and resonance to be in symbiosis with the elements of nature. The destruction of these bells shares the same ill intent of those who switch the musical pitch standard from the natural harmonic 432 Hz to the conscious depressing 440 Hz. So ask yourself, why would we be openly allowed such gifts of acoustic healing and free energy, so long as the controllers aim to profit off our sickness and dependency, off their petroleum-based medications, all to make us easier to control? Until next time.
Am I going crazy? So, I have an outdoor cat and I bought him a can of Fancy Feast. Fancy Feast turkey and giblets feast. There's all the information. This is what I found today. This hair is growing out of the food that wasn't ate. And it's coarse hair. It's the same color as my cat, but my cat is a short hair cat. What's happening here? Am I oblivious to this, or is this normal? Help me out.
Hi, good afternoon all the students on Earth. I'm Jai Zhigang, I'm the commander. Good afternoon, my name is Ye Guangfu.
Did you know doing this gesture is the Antichrist? Performing this produces the upside down cross. So you touch the head down to the heart, then tap both shoulders, which is cutting the connection between the head and the heart. It symbolizes cutting the connection between the mind and the soul. And the soul is pure love. You know when you hurt someone and you can feel that you've done something wrong inside your heart? That's because your soul is encoded with God's law of love. They don't want us connected with our soul intelligence, the intelligence within you that tells you the right thing to do at all times. This is why we say, follow your heart, and that Christ may dwell in your heart, because the heart is the brain for the soul, and the brain is the temple for the mind. The earth needs to connect more with their heart, because love is the unifying force that brings us all together.
And the last one of these was in 2019 in October. And it was hosted by Bill Gates, by Fauci, and by Avril Haines. I'm sure a lot of you have gone and looked at this on YouTube. It's called Event 201. That same week, Bill Gates, who was overseeing this simulation, bought 1.1 million shares of BioNTech vaccine, which later became the Pfizer vaccine. He then sold that, almost all that stock, 87%, 2 years later, at a $242 million profit. And a week after that, he publicly announced the vaccine didn't work. So this is what you call a pump and dump scheme. Because he was the guy who was on TV with his minion, Peter Hotez, who took $52 million from Gates for Gates made his institution. So you had the pair of them pumping up this stock for 2 years and then dumping it a week before he goes on TV and says, oh, it didn't work.
Way the most, I've got almost 100,000 views on it because they're joining me and saying, what? Federal law allows for weather modification experiments involving the use of human subjects for the testing of chemical and biological agents and open air testing of chemical and biological agents. How outrageous is that? There's no consent. There's no consent when you can't escape, when you can't sequester yourself from it. Let me read this again. U.S. federal law allows for weather modification experiments for the testing, open air testing of chemical and biological agents. Didn't they tell us that we were tinfoil hat conspiracy theorists? That we were imagining chemtrails, that they were really moisture in the air? And then I've had people argue with me in the last 24 hours on my social media saying, oh, they're contrails. Oh, you're a grifter. You're pushing, that narrative. I'm showing you federal law, you numbnuts. I'm showing you the federal law. Good Lord. Telling you. And, by the way, here's another good one. In another post, because I think this is important for you to see, the U.S. government has given itself permission, along with the approval of Congress, the 535 cockroaches up on Capitol Hill, to poison you with biological agents. And the U.S. code goes on to specify what is a biological agent. It's any microorganism, including bacteria, viruses, fungi, rickettsia, or protozoa, pathogens, or infectious substance, any infectious substance, like the ones they make in the lab, and any naturally occurring bioengineered or synthesized component of any microorganism that is capable of causing death, disease, and other biological malfunction. It's not a conspiracy theory. They've got themselves covered. And they've given themselves the permission to experiment on us like we're ants, insects on the ground. Why the country is not in an uproar is probably the biggest mystery of all. Oh, I'm thinking about Billy's soccer game on set. You're being poisoned. And you're being poisoned legally.
Story was December 29th, 2005. That's just 6 months ago. CNN, the lead story of the day. Vitamin D reduces cancer by over 50%. Wow, that's got to be the hottest story of the century. Very next day, it's gone, disappeared. The public doesn't hear of it because the FDA are owned by the drug industry. They get all their money from the drug industry, and the drug industry stands to lose hundreds of billions of dollars if you start to understand that 50 cents worth of vitamins can cure you instead of $5,000 worth of drugs. They don't want you to know, and that's what happens. The FDA suppresses the knowledge of the cure of diseases. The drug industry is so powerful. I mean, they own Congress. They have 1,200 lobbyists, and they're usually ex-congressmen and senators. computers, and they outnumber our congressmen 3-1. They spend billions and billions of dollars on propaganda that vitamins are bad for you. We can't fight that. To fight that, it takes a power, and public opinion is one of the greatest powers.
Who are you?
It doesn't matter who we are. What matters is our plan. No one cared who I was till I put on the mask.
If I pull that off, will you die?
It would be extremely painful.
You're a big guy.
For you.
Now we see the creation of a new massive class of useless people. As computers become better and better in more and more fields, there is a distinct possibility that computers will outperform us in most tasks and will make humans redundant. And then the big political and economic question of the 21st century will be, what do we need humans for? Or at least, what do we need so many humans for?
Do you have an answer in the book?
At present, the best guess we have is keep them happy with drugs and computer games.
The energy on average for each service and the CO2 being put out per unit of energy. So let's look at each one of these and see how we can get this down to zero. Probably one of these numbers is going to have to get pretty near to zero. That's back from high school algebra. But let's take a look. First, we've got population. The world today has 6.8 billion people. That's headed up to about 9 billion. Now, if we do a really great job on new vaccines, health care, reproductive health services, we could lower that by perhaps 10 or 15%.
What do you see as the biggest challenges in conservation?
The growing human population. Because if where we are, there's nothing else.
And do you have views about what should be done about that?
Can't you guess?
9 times the U.S. government experimented on the people. Operation Sea Spray, widespread bacterial contamination. MK Ultra, mind control. Operation Do 1 and Do 2, aerosolized zinc cadmium sulfide dispersals. Operation Big Itch, rat flea cluster bombs. Operation Big Buzz, mass mosquito dispersal. The Willowbrook hepatitis experiment. Operation Lack, a radioactive and chemical dispersal in St. Louis, Missouri. The release of bioagents in the New York subway. The measles vaccine experiment. What else do you think they're lying to us about?
Let's see some class. Look at this. So I flip this to L2, and then I bring this to 1, and fire. Now look at that. Fire.
Yo, so check this. The last time I posted this clip I'm about to show you, my page got hacked.
This looks awfully complex, doesn't it? And if it does, that's good, because every one of these red arrows shows HIV in the spike protein. This work comes from Luc Montagnier. Dr. Montagnier is the premier virologist in Paris, France. Dr. Montagnier got the Nobel Prize for identifying HIV. So if there's anybody on planet Earth who ought to be able to tell you that HIV exists in this spike protein, that's the man. And oh look, where he used to be professor and chair at, that's been deleted from the internet as well. That's the same place that Zhang Li presented and now got wiped off the face of the internet and off the face of the planet. Dr. Montagnier identified 18 RNA fragments that match HIV and SIV. This is simian, or monkey, grade 8 immune deficiency virus.
I was fired after 31 years as an emergency room physician with not one single patient complaint against me in those 31 years. I was fired for saying that somebody who had natural immunity didn't need to be vaccinated against a disease to which they were already immune. Fortunately, I still had my medical license, even though I'd lost a significant part, at least 50% of my income, and I couldn't work as an emergency room doctor anymore. I still had my private practice. So when I discovered from the biodistribution studies that Pfizer had hidden, that we knew that these vaccines go around your entire body, they do not just stay in your arm. Pfizer's biodistribution studies on the lipid nanoparticles show that they literally take those messenger RNA strands into every part of your body. They go into your brain and your lungs and your heart and your liver and your reproductive organs and your bone marrow and everywhere. Which is, by the way, why these COVID shots have caused a greater array of side effects than any other medical treatment in history. Because this toxic spike protein ends up in literally every part of your body.
Yo, check this out.
What is doublespeak? Doublespeak is language designed to evade responsibility, make the unpleasant appear pleasant, the unattractive appear attractive. Basically, it's language that pretends to communicate, but really doesn't. It is language designed to mislead while pretending not to. Is it done consciously? Oh, yes, very consciously. Doublespeak is not a slip of the tongue or a mistaken use of language. It's exactly the opposite. It is language used by people who are very intelligent and very sophisticated in the use of language and know that you can do an awful lot with language. Who's the worst offender? In sheer bulk? Yes. Sheer numbers of examples? The government. If we count government from the local level all the way up to the federal level, I had to stop writing the chapter on government doublespeak. It was going to take over the whole book. But interestingly enough, and this was a revelation in doing the book, about a half a step behind comes business with a tremendous amount of doublespeak.
Here's a parasite tool that I bet you didn't know of. And this is actually a pleasant one. It's sound healing. Mark, how can sound healing be helped to eliminate parasites?
So I've got two different sound healing instruments here. The sound waves are traveling through the skin, through the cells, all the way deep into the body. So there's no hiding. We tend to think that sound is just for the ears, but with these, we get so much deeper. And it's not just for the physical parasites, it's also for the energetic parasites.
Every single manufacturer of any nasal product and said, don't you dare try to promote this for COVID. Don't you dare even do research on COVID. One company, the company makes the product Clear, spelled X-L-E-A-R, they applied to the FDA. They said, we just want to do a project seeing if we suppress COVID-19. No, may not do this. Another company, Cofix RX, received very strong warning letters. You're promoting this for COVID-19, you have to stop. I can tell you, anything that works for COVID-19, there was a strict and forceful government response to abolish it. Started with hydroxychloroquine, ivermectin, virucidal nasal sprays. All of them work. All of them work. Higher dose corticosteroids, prednisone, far more effective than dexamethasone. The use of zinc, vitamin D, vitamin C, quercetin, over-the-counter famotidine. There's literature to support all of this. Colchicine, the best quality, prospective, multi-center, double-blind, randomized placebo-controlled trial in the history of COVID-19 was done with colchicine, and it reduced the risk of hospitalization and death. No word of it. The federal government has never mentioned the drug colchicine. Never. And in fact, now, before, with the earlier versions of the virus, people were dying of blood clots. Aspirin wasn't even mentioned, or other blood thinners, no mention. The only thing Americans heard, and people worldwide heard is, be afraid of this, stay in lockdown, social distance, wear a mask, use hand sanitizer, none of which work, and then wait for a vaccine. And when you get a vaccine, you've got to take it, and you've got to take it every 6 months with no questions, no exceptions, and do not miss a shot. It was clear from the beginning, COVID-19, the illness, was actually all about getting the vaccine, a needle in every arm.
Electricity can't go through the digestive tract, so in the digestive tract, to kill the microorganisms, the specific parasites, she's found the effectiveness of the black walnut, which the native Indians used for cleansing many years ago. The black walnut, in its green hull form, kills many of the microorganisms, and in conjunction with another product called wormwood and cloves, typical cloves that you would get at the store, these three in combination have the ability to go in and kill all the pathogens. Now, what's most interesting is the Mexican people have the lowest incidence of cancer anywhere on the planet, and the reason is they kill the ascaris with this particular product here, we all know to be the jalapeno pepper. And those seeds of the jalapeno pepper, only 10 or 15 seeds twice a day, have the ability to kill the ascaris, which she found to be a major cause of why the body loses oxygen at the tumor sites. And to kill that, you use the jalapeno seeds, and then you back that up with a little ozonated olive oil.
People don't know this, but in 1988, one of the majors, Procter & Gamble, came out with a product called Crest Sparkle. It was fluorescent blue.
I remember.
Had sparkles, a bubblegum flavor.
Yep.
Fluoride fatalities in children, it was something like 280%. That is why now there's an FDA-mandated poison warning on every tube of toothpaste that contains fluoride.
A moment for that.
Yes.
Everyone should hear that.
Yes, everyone should hear that.
That is like, no one can say that that's not science because
No,
literally the FDA
because if you gave me a tube right now, I would read it. I know what it says. It says, warning, keep out of reach of children.
You know, if you get into peanut butter, you know the whole thing with peanut butter, they tell you to avoid the peanut butter. Peanut butter is loaded with copper. Peanuts are loaded with copper. That's why they tell people to stay away. Also helps protect you from all these cell phone nonsense that they keep putting up. Peanuts. Now they don't tell you that they were sticking people with toxins, which were making them allergic to peanuts. That's the one part they forgot to say about that whole thing. That they were injecting people with toxins to make them allergic to peanuts, so that they stay away from the peanuts. But peanuts are high in copper. They're also high in zinc. They're also a complete superfood. But they'll tell you it's the mold. Gotta stay away. Gotta stay away.
Wondering why you're sick? Feeling a little bit under the weather? Won't be anything to do with all this water vapour, will it? So I might sound like a madman talking about this stuff. This is because of the lengths they go to program us into thinking this is normal and distract us from looking up and have us focusing on bullshit that doesn't matter. The only thing that does matter to these people is control, is manipulation. That's the only way they can stay in power. So that's why they do things like this. But it's beyond psychotic. When you know what that really is and you see it up there every single day, it gives you an idea of what we're dealing with here. This can't be normalised. I don't want to be breathing this in. I don't want nature to be destroyed by this. So the only way we can do anything about it is by speaking up at this point in time until enough people realise what's really going on in our skies. And it's not just the UK, all across the earth, this is going on.
These children are not just kidnapped and in some cases bred by families as a cash crop. We have people in the United States of America that breed children in order to sell them. And when they are sold, they come without birth certificates, which means it's easier to kill them and have no one ask where they are. We're also importing children by the plane load. Again, children who have no documentation. It's not just child slavery or child sex abuse. It's also child torture because you have adrenalized blood. You have the whole blood drinking ceremony of the satanic world. It's also the use of children for harvesting body organs. And then you have ritual ceremonies and ritual murder, as well as incidental murder. Most organizations that end up being used to prey on children, Oxfam is a recent example, all of the United Nations organizations, the Boy Scouts of America, all of the child services agencies across the United States of America, they did not start out as organizations to prey on children, but they attract pedophiles. And ultimately, pedophiles end up rising in the ranks and controlling those organizations, so that an organization that initially started out in the service of children becomes an organization that is in fact hunting children.
The Girl Scout cookies, it's a problem, Del. We tested 13 different types of cookies from 25 states, and those were, I believe it was California, Iowa, and, one other state. It's on our website, momsacrossamerica.org. Okay. And they were 100% positive for glyphosate, Del, at alarming levels, and 100% positive for heavy metals. And over 88% of them had all 5 of the toxic metals that we tested for, which is aluminum, arsenic, cadmium, mercury, and lead. And some of these toxic metals, I mean, almost all of them, can leave permanent lifetime damage. Since over 80% of the Girl Scout cookies had levels of lead that were higher than what the EPA allows. And the aluminum was anywhere up to 300 times higher than what people are supposed to be exposed to. We do suspect that the aluminum, because it was such high levels, it was parts per million, like 29,000 parts per billion, or so 29 parts per million. We're suspecting geoengineering because aluminum is sprayed through trying to manipulate the clouds to create rain. So we're not sure, but further testing needs to be done on that.
Entry or exit wound. How they're designed is to make the target feel like they're crazy, like they're imagining things, especially on the low duration, the low intensity, long duration hits.
Are either of you aware of any individuals who have AHI symptoms have passed away from their ailments? I do.
I do.
Have any of you 3 panelists ever seen one of these weapons?
I have seen a 1991 version of the weapon, and it looks like a satellite dish with a unit this size attached to it. Of course, over the years, miniaturization has been possible. Obviously, there's a limitation to how miniaturized it can be because of the antenna size, which is always related to the wave. But still, it is something that can be well contained in the trunk of a car or even a large backpack.
Is there anything people can do to clean their blood or clean their system out with prior vaccinations?
Yeah, so Dr. McCullough formulated an over-the-counter capsule that has nattokinase, bromelain, and thymulin in it, which are very safe. And these are ways of binding spike protein and carrying it out of the body. You can actually see urinary spike protein levels drop after taking these, and they're inexpensive. They're regular over-the-counter, and there are formulations for spike protein detox. You can even Google spike protein detox, and you'll find ones with nattokinase, bromelain, and the thymulin in them. Those are the higher quality spike protein detoxifications. And you can do pre and post urine spike protein analyses, and you can actually see that you've reduced it.
Wow.
Is dealing with radionuclear research.
Right.
It's nuclear research. But it is more than that, because there are lots of physicians, I know some, they're doing very strange experimentation. There are beings from portals coming in and out. It's physicists from the CERN who told me this.
They've testified to beings coming in and out of portals.
Yes, they have apparently in the bottom of the CERN this portal, this door where they are dealing with all the subatomic dimensions. They say there are 17 different dimensions of reality. That's what those physicists say. Some others say there are more dimensions. You know, they had a being, they did not tell me more, who came that doesn't resemble a human. And then they had another one, and they have a proof because they left a scarf. They left a scarf. And now, when you look at what is going on in the Stern, there is a fight from some of the military agencies, intel. They say that there is a fight on time. They're trying to change time.
You remember during COVID, what was one of the things that happened to everybody who got COVID? They lost their sense of taste, right? And smell? Do you know why? The virus actually destroyed melanin in the olfactory bulb. That's actually how it goes. Why? Because the virus itself is a mitochondrial toxin. How do you like that? And how did you know it came back? I would tell everybody you lost smell and taste. You never get this from a centralized doc. I said, just go out and get solar exposure on your face. It'll come back in like 4 to 6 weeks. And they're like, you're kidding me. I'm like, nope. Guess what? That's how it works. The trigeminal nerve actually has connections to the olfactory bulb because it's a cranial nerve. But this is stuff that centralized doctors learn in medical school and they forget.
How do I meet the strangest men? They always seem to find me. Remember that time way back when I kissed a guy who ate his women friends? Now
mRNA vaccines have reached the pork industry, and here's what they're not telling you. So all across the US, pork can be vaccinated with the mRNA vaccine and not be labeled on the packages that you are buying in the grocery store. So we have no idea what pork has been vaccinated, what pork hasn't been. My best advice to get around this is find a great local pork dealer, go directly through them. And as always, guys, buy American and buy local.
The government knows quite a bit about eating bugs. Turns out it's very, very unhealthy. I pulled these right out of the National Library of Medicine 2017 study funded by the government. Said that the chitin in bugs, the exoskeletons, will provoke human innate immunity to generate a deluge of inflammatory cytokines which injure organs and in persistent situations lead to death, multiple sclerosis, systemic lupus, and cancer. Sign me up, right? So the goal, folks, is not to save the planet. It's not to save the climate. Like the revolutionaries used to say back in the 60s, the Students for a Democratic Society, the issue is never the issue. It's not about global warming. It's not about sustainable development. It's about enslaving humanity. They want to wipe out small, medium-sized producers, centralize food control in the hands of mega corporations in bed with the mega governments. They want to move the population into the mega cities and ultimately bring about this great reset in what they call the New World Order. And I'm out of time, but I'll leave you with...
Dr. Kissinger, our satellite time is running out. What wonderful opportunity to conclude our week here with such concrete proposals and ideas of how we can really create, I would say, a new world order.
March 2012. The worst place to be in America when you're sick is an American hospital. I took two things out of the article. You know where they're coming from. The number of American patients who die each year from American hospital errors is the same as 4 jumbo jets crashing each week. He said it's 1,500 people. That's 3,000 every 2 weeks. It's 6,000 a month, 72,000 a year. How many of you would fly commercial airlines if you knew that they killed 72,000 passengers every year? Nobody would fly. And yet you still go to a doctor. Now you think about it. They kill 72,000 of their customers every year from just simple mistakes. Hello? They don't even get their license suspended for 3 seconds. Nobody goes to jail. They don't get a parking ticket. People say, well, why are you so rough on doctors? My wife is a microsurgeon from Harvard, for God's sakes. Why am I so rough on doctors? Well, if they didn't give me the material, I couldn't do it, could I? This is not my figures. Newsweek magazine cover article. One word that'll save your life in a hospital in America is a 2-letter word that every 2-year-old knows. No! You failed 4 rounds of chemotherapy. We have this new experimental drug we want to use on you. No.
When we sleep, waves of spinal fluid wash over the brain to remove waste. This scan exhibits waves of blood oxygenation, followed by waves of cerebrospinal fluid in the brain during sleep and deep rest. This literally means that when we're asleep, we have spinal fluid that is washing our brain and cleaning it of toxins. This is the rinsing, reset, and improvement of our brain that occurs during sleep and other states of deep rest. CSF is fundamental to maintaining brain chemistry and our feelings of being reset after mental or physical or emotional exertion. And it also allows for neuroplasticity, including stem cell renewal and neurogenesis in specific parts of the brain. This system is managed by the brain's glial cells, aka the glymphatic system. As you can see in this video, there are visible changes in the way fluid moves in the brain between conscious and unconscious states. It's believed that glial cells control flow through the system by shrinking and swelling thanks to the hormone noradrenaline. Your CSF also offers immunologic protection to the entire central nervous system. Tell me that isn't one of the most beautiful illustrations of why sleep is so important. With this in our minds, let's make the intention to appreciate just how cool our body really is, because it's working for you even when you're sleeping.
Back, and even a rare blizzard warning in through the Montreal region and up along the St. Lawrence River. 40 centimeters picked up in Montreal, but when was the last time we seen anything similar like this? Well, this past week was very snowy. On February 13th, we saw 34 centimeters. On February 15th, just shy of 2, and February 16th, we saw 36.8. Now that totals to 72.4 centimeters of snowfall in 4 days in the city of Montreal. Now, taking a look back at the records, we have to track all the way into 1898 in the month of January, where we saw the exact same total of snowfall in 4 days. Now, the good news is we're not tracking any major systems as we head into the long-range forecast. The colder air will definitely stick into place. The snow will also be staying as well, and wind chill values will be into the minus teens and minus 20s as we head into the long-range forecast.
Pentagon scientists have finished testing on an early weapon that can make laser plasma balls talk.
Stop, or we will be forced to fire upon you.
It's called the laser-induced plasma effect, and it's made by the Joint Non-Lethal Weapons Directorate. So what they've done is basically created a laser that can shoot out to a certain distance, and they can pipe in sound waves through it, and actually make human voice sounds and commands.
Stop, or we will be forced to fire upon you.
Now, where this becomes useful is around an area where you want to keep a perimeter secure. So essentially, you can shoot out this laser, you can then talk to the people on the edge of the perimeter rather than sending troops out there and tell them to get away, or you're going to shoot, or get away, or they're going to use other means to deter them. And that same laser can be used to actually target the individual and create heat through pinpricks, like microscopic pinpricks in their skin, even beneath clothing. It's extremely uncomfortable, and people move out of the way almost immediately. At the same time, the exact same laser is also being used as kind of a never-ending flashbang grenade. It can basically, with a power source, it can constantly create audible effects to deter and confuse and disorient people, just like a flashbang grenade that you would have in your kit, but would only be able to flash once, maybe twice, depending on the design. Now, it's still a few years away. They just finished testing to get the audio portion through the laser in a laboratory setting this year, but they expect to have a fieldable version within the next 5 years that troops could use to protect different areas or put on mobile platforms to disperse crowds or use it in a non-lethal way in theater.
Did you know, if you send this video to your friend, you will have successfully wasted 7 seconds of their life.
Wait a second. You volunteered to go to Earth?
I did. I had to. I had family trapped on Earth.
But how could you get trapped on Earth?
You had to be there to understand. On Earth, you wouldn't remember anything.
What do you mean you wouldn't remember anything?
I mean, you would have no memory of anything. You wouldn't even remember existing before Earth.
What? How is that possible?
It was designed that way. It was brilliant. To dive as deeply as possible into such ignorance, such darkness, and still find your way back to remembering who you were, that took true mastery.
Wow. I still can't believe you went to Earth. Tell me more.
Well, Earth had its own set of laws that everyone agreed to experience, like gravity. What goes up must come down, like linear time. Day is followed by night.
Time? What's time?
You know how when we think of something it manifests instantly? Well, on Earth there was a delay. The delay is what made Earth so difficult.
Interesting. Time. So tell me more.
Before going to Earth, you would choose your family, whether you wanted to be male or female, what race you wanted to be, the location on the planet, things like that.
Oh, so you could choose your own character.
Exactly. You would enter the Earth as a baby and be completely dependent on others to teach you the rules. But since nobody could remember the rules, they made up their own rules, based on fear and giving your power away to others.
A pathologist not too long ago did 10 sequential autopsies of MS patients, and every one of them, 100%, had parasites in the brain or in the spinal cord. What we are seeing as plaques turns out probably to be parasite egg sacs, parasite infestation. And he said in some cases you could actually see small nematode wormholes. I mean, that it was
of the worm showing the mouth parts and some little hooks. A worm, of course, in the brain, an adult worm, and does not belong there.
Am I to pull from this that none of the vaccines, including the COVID vaccine, has not been properly tested?
Absolutely. Not a single childhood vaccine, I could tell you, has gone through a placebo-controlled clinical trial of sufficient duration and power to assess that it was safe before being injected into millions of children in America.
All right.
I can say that categorically, not because it's my opinion, but because anybody who goes to the FDA website could see that for themselves by looking at the package insert and the underlying clinical trial documents that are available on the FDA website.
Very good.
Having said as clearly as possible that the anti-vax people seem to be the winners, I want you to hear that clearly. The anti-vax people appear to be the winners. The anti-vaxxers clearly are the winners at this point, and I think it'll probably stay that way. And I don't want to put any shade on that whatsoever. They came out the best. They have the winning position. The unvaccinated have a current advantage because they feel better. The thing they're not worrying about is what I have to worry about, which is, I wonder if that vaccination 5 years from now, because really the anti-vaxxers, I think, were really just distrustful of big companies and big government. That's never wrong. It's never wrong to distrust government. It's never wrong to distrust big companies. Right? So if you just took the position, let's just...
Wait, so it's the mold that dehydrates us?
Oh my gosh, do you want 30 seconds on that?
Yes.
The primary mold toxin in coffee that survives roasting and brewing is called ochratoxin A. It is a toxin that attacks your bladder and your kidneys. So when your body detects that you just drank this, It freaks out, it dehydrates your tissues to dilute the toxin, and you know this. You ever drink coffee and then you have to pee 20 minutes later and your bladder's not full?
Yes.
Why did you have to pee without a full bladder? Because there's toxins in your pee and your body's like, get it out of here. This stuff causes cancer.
Oh my God, I have chills all the way down my body.
This is why it works.
I'm a freshman in high school, and the science fair project was on the effect of essential oils, clove bud, and oregano, and an antibiotic, amoxicillin, on the growth of bacteria. And pretty much amoxicillin, if you don't know, is an antibiotic that is commonly prescribed by doctors to kill bacterial issues such as strep throat, that kind of thing. At first, I used 3 drops of each oil and then 1 little pill of amoxicillin on each plate to help kill the bacteria. And when I used 3 drops of oregano, it totally killed all of the bacteria, so there was no way for me to measure how much was actually killed. And my teacher was very surprised by that, so she had me do 1 drop of oregano, and that also killed out all of the bacteria. So she had me use a micro pipette, and that still killed more bacteria than the amoxicillin did.
This is an important one about light and how anyone who wears glasses should listen to this video. So, ultraviolet light is dangerous. This is what they tell us. We should avoid it at all costs. We live in houses with no ultraviolet light. We leave our houses and we put on glasses, contacts, and sunglasses, which block the UV light. We drive in cars that also block the UV light. We work in offices which receive no UV light. Then we turn on lights that have no UV light. And then finally we take a break in the sun and we put on suntan lotion, which blocks the UV light. Then we look at the benefits of UV and we see UV light activates vitamin D. You don't need synthetic, non-absorbing vitamin D supplements. Also helps with lowering blood pressure. Also helps the heart, the arteries, and cholesterol. It also assists in weight loss, which is a $1 trillion industry. Helps with skin conditions and other diseases. And then it also helps to boost melatonin levels so that you can sleep better. This industry has been created to tell you to avoid the sun so that all of these industries can exist.
Perfect example, we had a patient referred to us who had stage 4 throat cancer. The bottom line was he had 2 root canal teeth. The radiographs looked pristine, and 1,000 dentists that would view him would say these are absolutely normal. The pathogens that were in these 2 root canal teeth were in his throat, exactly where the cancer was. I extracted the 2 teeth, we ozonated the jawbone, homeopathics, and ionic silver. In 3 weeks, the stage 4 throat cancer was totally resolved, documented with PET scans, blood tests, and visual. This is the impact of toxic root canal teeth.
Dr. Walrath, just with electromagnetic frequencies, got rid of cancerous tumors in minutes, because if you change the frequency of a cancerous cell, it changes immediately the core of the cell and immediately the shape of the cell. Dr. Simoncini in Rome wrote this fantastic book, Cancer is a Fungus. He cured an enormous amount of people just with baking soda, with sodium bicarbonate. The second the sodium bicarbonate alkalizes the cancer, or the cancerous tumor just disappears. He has it on ultrasound, he has it on video. The medical profession has a cancer cure rate of 2%. 27% of all people that do nothing get cured with absolutely doing nothing. There are 2 independent studies done showing I have a cancer cure rate of 92.3%. By law, a medical doctor in America has to apply chemotherapy, radiation, and surgery to the cancer patient if he knows better or not, if he wants to do this or not, or he or she is running the danger to lose her license or even go to jail. The oncologists in Canada, there was a study done. They were asked if they would apply their own treatments to themselves or their loved ones. 86% said absolutely not.
We now know that cancer is vulnerable between the frequencies of 100,000 hertz and 300,000 hertz. 2 input frequencies, one low, one high, and the higher frequency must be 11 times the lower, what we musicians would call the 11th harmonic. When we add the 11th harmonic, we begin to shatter microorganisms like a crystal glass. These organisms are being shattered by our electronic signals. They begin to slow down, then they stop, and then they begin to disintegrate within about 3 minutes. You'll see a large organism in the center, a paramecium, undergoing disintegration, and swimming all around it, a tiny different organism which is unharmed. We film the destruction of hundreds of microorganisms. We attack pancreatic cancer. They change their shape and size. This is the beginning of a process of destruction for cancer cells. So now we attack leukemia cells, shattered into dozens of fragments. You can see by the end of the video, the great many ovarian cancer cells were destroyed. Now we attack pancreatic cancer once more. The tumor shrinks and is broken up in repeated controlled laboratory experiments, independently assayed by the two top experts. We killed an average of 25% to 42% of the leukemia cells, as high as 60%. They also determined that we slowed the growth rate of the cancer by as much as 65%, so a double effect. Cancer treatment rooms for children will be a very different place. They'll draw pictures, color in their books, play with their toys, all the while unaware that above them are beautiful blue pinkish plasma lights emanating healing, pulsing electric fields, shattering their cancer painlessly and non-toxically, one cell at a time. Thank you.
Now, the world today has 6.8 billion people. That's headed up to about 9 billion. Now, if we do a really great job on new vaccines, healthcare, reproductive health services, we could lower that by perhaps 10 or 15%.
Well, common sense would tell you if you have a man standing in front of you saying he's going to reduce the world's population by 10 or 15% using vaccines, what does that mean to you? It means somebody's going to die because you put a vaccine in them. It doesn't mean you're going to save people. That's pretty much common sense in my brain. But yet I saw him say it. He said it. And here we are. I don't know. I'm just, here we are. I'm now an anti-vaxxer. I wasn't before.
Every single human that lives in a home or has been in a car or has been in a building that was exposed to mold, and you've had lingering symptoms ever since. If you have been exposed to mold, black mold, candida, doesn't matter. If you have mold, you're most likely being exposed also to what's called mycotoxins. And these are what create seizures, night terrors, migraine headaches, auras and light changes for people, mood disorders when they're exposed to molds, and the gases they off-put, which is called mycotoxins. Did you know that black seed oil completely destroys mycotoxins? In fact, it destroys mycotoxins that are even off-gassed by a fungus called aflatoxin, which is the #1 fungus they have found that leads to cancer-causing tumors being made in the body.
What to do if you actually have parasites? Take something to keep the bile ducts open and free-flowing. And I would recommend finding a product called Tutka. Tutka is a type of bile salt that helps open up the flow of sludge through the bile ducts itself. The two remedies called wormwood extract and clove are really good at killing parasitic eggs. The next important remedy would be black walnut extract. The next thing is 2 or 3 garlic cloves a day. It just would include daily fermented vegetables, raw sauerkraut, kimchi, kefir. And lastly, vitamin D. Remember, the parasite downgraded the vitamin D receptor. So unless you have enough vitamin D, your immune system might not be strong enough to deal with it. And I would take no less than 20,000 IUs or maybe even 40,000 IUs of vitamin D3.
One of my favorite diseases is Alzheimer's disease. It's a physician-caused disease. It's a pretty powerful statement. It's a physician-caused disease. We didn't have Alzheimer's disease 40 years ago. It was not in any medical dictionary, medical textbooks. It was not taught in any medical class. It only became a disease entity in 1979. Today, according to Ralph Nader, it rivals cancer in cost, $300,000 per patient, and it's the number 4 killer of adults over the age of 65, behind cardiovascular disease, cancer, diabetes, then comes Alzheimer's disease. Now, we eliminated Alzheimer's disease from animals from 40 years ago. Can you imagine a dairy farmer with 400 head of cows out in the pasture with Alzheimer's disease, and he's yelling at them, woo, and rattling the feed bucket trying to get them up to get milk. And the cows are all out there scratching their heads saying, why do we want to go to the barn to get milk? And if we did, where's the barn? Because they get kind of... So the farmer has to put fuel in the ATV and ride out there and herd them up, and the fuel cost goes up, labor cost goes up, so they have to raise the price of milk. Nobody's happy. So we eliminated Alzheimer's disease by eliminating vegetable oil, corn oil, and soy oil from the animal's diet and putting in large doses of vitamin E and selenium.
Our Environment Minister, Stephen Guilbeault, is still in cabinet. But that shouldn't surprise any of us, given that the new Prime Minister is a whole new level of climate zealot and eco-extremist. From his decades-long push for net zero banking that sought to make it impossible for banks to invest in oil and gas, to his promise now to massively increase carbon taxes on our industry, make no mistake, he wants to eviscerate our oil and gas industry. It's right in his book. In Canada, our national identity, unity, our freedom, and our future are at a monumental crossroads. It is likely that soon Canadians will be headed to the ballot box to be able to vote in the most pivotal federal election that we have had in our lifetimes.
Childhood trauma is stored in the major organ. Heart is one. Heart store the pain, the hatred, and the spleen store the mistrust, and the lungs store the sad and depression. So each one store different emotional. Kidney store the fear and phobia, and liver store the angry. Each emotional, when we know what emotional affecting us, so we have a securing sound in the mind, especially in the organ, to clear them out.
Your eyes can tell whether you have parasite infestation in your body or not. So if you look at the white part of your eyes, so the lower part and the upper part you need to see. When you look at the lower part and you see blood vessels like shown in this picture, then you have parasite infestation in the gut area, in the abdominal cavity area. If you have the web-like structure, the blood vessels are visible, like in the picture, in the upper part of the white area of your eyes, then there is high probability that you have parasite infestation in the brain area. So these are the signs, and if you see these signs, then you need to go for a deep dive parasite detox, parasite cleansing, and you will see many diseases vanishing from your body. So save this video, share it with your friends and relatives as well. Very effective way to identify whether you have parasite infestation or not. Thank you.
Interesting. The following film shows the human energy field radiating outward from the body. It dynamically changes based on the physical conditions, the feeling states, the motivations of the person, in interaction with energy radiation from objects and living things. The existence of the human energy field, or the aura, was validated and studied by over 12 years of high-frequency recordings. This film shows the field not ordinarily seen, but now visible. Like all living things, this little dog has a sizable radiant field, even when he sits quietly. Notice now, as he greets his master, the obvious love and affection between them increases the dynamic radiation from their bodies, even the dog's tail and the man's head. No wonder so many people have pets who give them pleasure and provide a vital field of energy to interact with. Wherever there is motion in the universe, there is increased flow in the field that humans interact with. See the explosive activity from the waves and from his body. Also, the electromagnetic field of the body is negatively charged or ionized, as are waves or tumbling water, which further expands and heightens his field, giving a physical exuberance and emotional excitement. No wonder that a day at the beach is so exhilarating and vitalizing.
It is extraordinary that Mark Carney has become the Prime Minister of Canada. He did a terrible job in Britain of the governorship of the Bank of England. He created a lot of the problems that blew up on my watch and that I got blamed for were actually created by him. He backed Labour in the election and Rachel Reeves's policies, which are leading the country to bankruptcy. So why on earth the Liberal Party of Canada has selected this man, I have no idea. And I think it is illegitimate that this guy has never been elected as a member of Parliament in Canada. I'm utterly puzzled, and the Canadians. I'm not going to tell the Canadians how to vote. Obviously, I want the Conservatives to be elected in Canada, but I think it's Justin Trudeau has pursued a lot of the same policies that Europe has been pursuing, and America has raced ahead of us. Back at the turn of the millennium, the average Brit was catching up with the average American in terms of income per head.
Wow.
We are now $34,000 a year behind. We are poorer than Mississippi, which is the poorest American state. And the same is true. The same is true of France and Germany, and to some extent of Canada, because they pursued all of these woke policies. High taxes, high spending, not using their natural resources. And Justin Trudeau was the architect of that. And of course, Mark Carney has been the advocate of these policies. So I don't know what is going on in Canada, but in the same way as I think people in Britain need to wake up to what the real threat to our country is, I think they need to wake up in Canada. It is extraordinary that Mark Carney has become the Prime Minister of Canada. He did a terrible job in Britain of the governorship of the Bank of England. He created a lot of the problems that blew up on my watch and that I got blamed for were actually created by him. He backed Labour in the election and Rachel Reeves's policies, which are leading the country to bankruptcy. So why on earth the Liberal Party of Canada has selected this man, I have no idea. And I think it is illegitimate that this guy has never been elected as a member of Parliament in Canada. I'm utterly puzzled, and the Canadians. I'm not going to tell the Canadians how to vote. Obviously, I want the Conservatives to be elected in Canada, but I think it's Justin Trudeau has pursued a lot of the same policies that Europe has been pursuing, and America has raced ahead of us. Back at the turn of the millennium, the average Brit was catching up with the average American in terms of income per head.
Wow.
We are now $34,000 a year behind. We are poorer than Mississippi, which is the poorest American state. And the same is true. The same is true of France and Germany, and to some extent of Canada, because they pursued all of these woke policies. High taxes, high spending, not using their natural resources. And Justin Trudeau was the architect of that. And of course, Mark Carney has been the advocate of these policies. So I don't know what is going on in Canada, but in the same way as I think people in Britain need to wake up to what the real threat to our country is, I think they need to wake up in Canada.
This extreme amount of hatred and violence is because we're actually succeeding in getting rid of corruption and waste. If we weren't succeeding in getting rid of corruption and waste, they wouldn't care. But we are succeeding. Without President Trump, this would be impossible. So I'd just like to say, it's only possible with this president. And we've got this narrow window of opportunity with a House, Senate, and a popular vote, and really we're just implementing the will of the people. And we've got this window where we can finally take corrective action, we can fix the government, fix the country, and create a great future.
What I'm about to show you are the x-rays in the labs of a 24-year-old female that came to see us with PCOS, irregular cycles, heavy menstrual periods, and she had tons of bad gut health concerns from bloating after her meals, constipation, and diarrhea. Her doctor told her that the only way to balance her hormones was going to be birth control and that her diet had nothing to do with it. We ran comprehensive labs for her to help her figure out what was going on. Check out these results. Her hormone testing revealed she was extremely estrogen dominant in several different forms of her estrogens, as well as androgen dominant as well, which is very classic of PCOS. Here's a look at her x-ray, and she was absolutely loaded with backed up stool, poop, and gas. And when we see this, it almost always means that there's a gut problem going on, and she had tons of digestion concerns. So we ran a stool test next to see what that showed. Her stool test function showed that her immune system was starting to become very elevated and more inflammatory, as well as she was becoming very toxic with an extremely elevated beta-glucuronidase, which was preventing her body from getting rid of toxins. Her stool test also showed an overgrowth of a potentially pathogenic bacteria within her gut, and she tested positive for 2 separate parasitic infections, which was why her immune system was starting to become so elevated. And she tested positive for 26 different food allergies that she was eating every single day. So for this patient, it was all those inflammatory foods in her diet and in her gut that were contributing to those hormones being imbalanced, and now she knows what to do to fix that.
About 60% of the country has it. It's the cat parasite you get from cats. It's a parasite that makes its way into the body, then eventually makes its way into your brain. Once it's in the body, it's called toxoplasmosis. And this parasite is so intelligent, they know how to survive. They know how to build and burrow into the body, into the parts of the body that get no white blood cells. Super intelligent. They send signals to the nervous system, to different parts of the impulse control to release ghrelin hormone, or hunger hormone, that starve you of glucose, so you're just craving sugar and craving sweets. This then leads to depression, highs and lows, irregular heartbeat, muscle twitching, brittle hair, dry skin, psoriasis, unregulated sleep cycles. This is how these devastation things happen. So the cat parasite, the rat gets it. It programs the rat to chase the cat. Wow. So the cat eats the rat and goes back into the host. This isn't some sci-fi movie. This is a real deal.
Something that affects every single living human, in fact every single living organism on the face of the earth. You could be leading a healthy lifestyle, you could be jogging, eating raw food, taking vitamins and all those kind of things, but these guys don't care. These guys are persistent, they're dangerous, they're deadly. They've been around for millions of years, they know what they're doing, and they're inside of all of us, and we're constantly being exposed to what's going on. It's going on inside every one of us, and this is something that we all need to take very seriously.
This is not science fiction. This is scary, it's real, and it's serious. Monsters living inside us, they eat our bodies and control our emotions, urges, and thoughts.
As a colon hydrotherapist for approximately 21 years now, you wouldn't believe what I see coming out of people's bodies.
This is not just a third world country thing. Everybody has them. Even normal people with lots of money living in suburbia who take showers 3 times a day. If you eat sushi, you have parasites. 1 square inch of raw sushi meat can contain 10,000 parasite larvae and eggs that begin hatching inside you the minute you eat it. The most common kind is tapeworms, which can grow to 60 feet long and live in your intestines for decades. If you have pets, you are guaranteed to have parasites. It doesn't matter if you're vegetarian, raw foodist, vegan, or macrobiotic. Even the healthiest and richest people on earth have parasites. You can't kill them all, only control them, because our bodies have trillions of cells which rely on helpful bacteria.
Hi. My nation is not a sport. It's not a double-double or a beer commercial. It's also not a show about getting drunk and high at a trailer park. Although Sir John A. definitely downed a pint or 2. See, I don't speak like the guys from Letterkenny. I don't work on an oil rig. I also don't have a communist rainbow flag stitched into my backpack. I have a prime minister who wore blackface, and he'll accuse anyone of racism who dares to stand up for the people of this place. I don't watch the Canadian news. I watch American TV. Just like you. I think pronouns are gay, and land acknowledgements are stupid. I speak English and un peu de français, and if you don't speak either, then you should probably go back to wherever you came from. I believe in hard work, not scamming people. I believe in honesty and real charity, not virtue signaling like a jackass. We are a nation of fur traders, explorers, and hunters. We conquered this great wilderness with courage, not cowardice. We were founded by French Catholics and English Protestants. My birthplace and bloodline is significant. See, diversity is not our strength, folks. Look around. Multiculturalism is a failed experiment. I'm part of the Great White North, and we are not the third world's doormat. We've had our differences with America. One time we set the White House on fire. But we fought the same world wars, and we both honor our veterans. So we won't roll over for Trump, but Donald has helped make one thing clear. We need better leadership in this country. Let's get these corrupt criminals out of here. Because I was at the trucker convoy where real Canadians stood with pride. And the way we were treated is not why countless Canadian soldiers died. There is only two genders. Don Cherry should have never been fired, and the number one problem in this country is the 338 traitors in Ottawa. My name is Greg, and I am a real Canadian.
The woman started acting strangely, and initially surgeons thought that she had a brain tumor.
But when they opened her up, a surprising find. Eyewitness News reporter Joe Torres spoke to her about the bizarre diagnosis.
The good news is I don't have cancer.
That's also surprising news because doctors at Mount Sinai Hospital thought just the opposite until last September when neurosurgeons opened up Rachel Palma's skull. They fully expected to find a marble-sized malignant brain tumor. Instead, they found a parasite.
We were like overjoyed. We were like cheering and clapping. We were so happy in the OR. When we got in there and we saw that it was actually a tapeworm, we were like, yes, we were so happy.
It was January of last year when strange things started happening to the 42-year-old from Middletown. She'd suddenly drop her coffee mug. She couldn't remember words. She tried calling deceased relatives. After countless doctor visits and numerous brain scans, specialists at Mount Sinai found the problem and developed a plan of attack, a 3-hour surgery.
This is the lesion, right? And you can see how it enhances this very bright white here, and inside of it is dark.
Yep.
And you see the same thing here.
The big mystery to this story, how the parasite got there. The patient never traveled outside the United States. She doesn't recall eating uncooked meat. Frankly, she's given up trying to find an answer.
I stopped asking questions and started celebrating and making the most out of life because in an instant it can be taken away.
Doctors say had they known it was a tapeworm and not a tumor causing all the problems, perhaps a heavy dose of antibiotics would have served as a remedy, but that doesn't faze Rachel Palma.
There's not a doubt in my mind that they saved my life, and they gave me my life back.
A life temporarily hijacked by a parasite.
So there's something wrong. There's something wrong. We've done something wrong. There's something, you're going to figure it out. Maybe it's a spray that we spray all over the place that nobody else does.
The woman started acting strangely, and initially surgeons thought that she had a brain tumor.
But when they opened her up, a surprising find. Eyewitness News reporter Joe Torres spoke to her about the bizarre diagnosis.
The good news is I don't have cancer.
That's also surprising news because doctors at Mount Sinai Hospital thought just the opposite until last September when neurosurgeons opened up Rachel Palma's skull. They fully expected to find a marble-sized malignant brain tumor. Instead, they found a parasite.
We were like overjoyed. We were like cheering and clapping. We were so happy in the OR. When we got in there and we saw that it was actually a tapeworm, we were like, yes, we were so happy.
It was January of last year when strange things started happening to the 42-year-old from Middletown. She'd suddenly drop her coffee mug. She couldn't remember words. She tried calling deceased relatives. After countless doctor visits and numerous brain scans, specialists at Mount Sinai found the problem and developed a plan of attack, a 3-hour surgery.
This is the lesion, right? And you can see how it enhances this very bright white here, and inside of it is dark. Yep. And you see the same thing here.
The big mystery to this story, how the parasite got there. The patient never traveled outside the United States. She doesn't recall eating uncooked meat. Frankly, she's given up trying to find an answer.
I stopped asking questions and started celebrating and making the most out of life because in an instant it can be taken away.
Doctors say had they known it was a tapeworm and not a tumor causing all the problems, perhaps a heavy dose of antibiotics would have served as a remedy. But that doesn't faze Rachel Palma.
There's not a doubt in my mind that they saved my life, and they gave me my life back.
A life temporarily hijacked by a parasite.
So there's something wrong. There's something wrong. We've done something wrong. There's something, you're going to figure it out. Maybe it's a spray that we spray all over the place that nobody else does.
So today we're going to talk about a Merck product called ivermectin. And this is talked about all the time. If they didn't get you with the vaccine, they try to get you with ivermectin because Merck created the first vaccine and also owns ivermectin. So see how they get you on both sides? But look at these ingredients. A lot of people say ivermectin is the solution. Well, benzoyl alcohol, that's an interesting one. All these glycols, all these propylene, polysorbate 80, that's what they put in vaccines to make the heavy metals get across the blood-brain barrier. They also put propylene glycol in this, which is antifreeze. Stuff gets real weird. And when we get into the whole parasite thing, parasites are the accumulation of heavy metal pollution. So the body has all these heavy metals. The body then has these worms. The worms are trying to eat the heavy metals. People take some toxins to kill the worms, but then you still got the heavy metal pollution inside the body. So then I did some more digging and I found out who has the rights to these pills. So not only do you have Merck, but you have all these brands. You know these ones? How about this one all the way at the top? Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. Interesting. So instead of funding Big Pharma some more, you could just use natural foods to get the heavy metals out of the body. Use pumpkin seeds, papaya seeds, you can use beets, carrots, dragon's blood, all these beautiful things that nature gives us so we don't have to keep funding Big Pharma.
Back in the time machine to August of 2014, that is when Bill Thompson made the admission that the CDC had lied and hid the fact that the MMR vaccine was associated with autism. Talking with Thompson as it unfolded felt like a spy movie. It led me to secretly record phone conversations with Dr. William Thompson, which I did in the state of Oregon because it's illegal to secretly record phone conversations in the state of California. Dr. Thompson freely admitted that he had covered it up and his associates at the CDC had also covered it up.
Thimerosal causes autism-like features, and that's the way I would say it. I'm completely ashamed of what I did. The higher-ups wanted to do certain things, and I went along with it. Colleen is a center director, Frank is the director of immunization safety, and Marceline is the branch chief. They're still all much more senior than me.
Dr. Julie Gerberding was head of the CDC at the time. Coincidentally, she went on to a lucrative career at Merck, the manufacturer of the MMR vaccine.
I'm like, oh my God, I cannot believe we did what we did. But we did.
Be exposed to high levels, and the whole reason that we've covered them in tinfoil is because the environment of this classroom is filled with that. Right, so we had to try to isolate the plants inside of there and not let the Wi-Fi get in there.
I don't really know if it'll affect anything because, like, I grow plants in my, like, I have Wi-Fi in my house and I grow plants all the time and they grow fine.
It's gonna die.
You think so?
Yeah. it blew my mind that the Wi-Fi off, like, the plants are growing.
Yeah.
But Wi-Fi on, the plants are growing. So I think that when the Wi-Fi's on, it's affecting the world, like affecting the whole entire world.
What are people's arguments against our results going to be?
The Wi-Fi on might have dried out all of the water from the seedlings.
The heat will evaporate the water that's in the plant.
The FCC doesn't say anywhere that Wi-Fi and radiation is harmful to people.
I think that we have to explore those different variables to make this experiment as sound as we can. What's the first thing that you're going to do? You get your cell phone in your hands, you just watch that video. What are you going to Google?
Does Wi-Fi kill plants? Or other living things?
First thing I would look up is what else can it hurt?
What?
Our brain, our arms, our legs. Does Wi-Fi hurt our body physically and mentally? Could it affect your sperm count and decrease population?
What?
Given the fact that you have been part of this research, looking over all of these studies, do you have Wi-Fi in your house?
No, I've been in the technology industry all my life, and I've never had Wi-Fi.
Because?
I just didn't feel it was right. I didn't feel it was safe. And my wife has been very actually forceful about not having that. Now, you can run a longer wire. It's a bit annoying.
Signaling. Produce heat.
Have any countries or cities like banned Wi-Fi?
Pentagon scientists have finished testing on an early weapon that can make laser plasma balls talk.
Stop, or we will be forced to fire upon you.
It's called the laser-induced plasma effect, and it's made by the Joint Non-Lethal Weapons Directorate. So what they've done is basically created a laser that can shoot out to a certain distance, and they can pipe in sound waves through it, and actually make human voice sounds and commands.
Stop, or we will be forced to fire upon you.
Now where this becomes useful is around an area where we want to keep a perimeter secure. So essentially you can shoot out this laser, you can then talk to the people on the edge of the perimeter rather than sending troops out there and tell them to get away, or you're going to shoot, or get away, or they're going to use other means to deter them. And that same laser can be used to actually target the individual and create heat through pinpricks, like microscopic pinpricks in their skin, even beneath clothing. It's extremely uncomfortable and people move out of the way almost immediately. At the same time, the exact same laser is also being used as kind of a never-ending flashbang grenade. It can basically, with a power source, it can constantly create audible effects to deter and confuse and disorient people, just like a flashbang grenade that you would have in your kit, but would only be able to flash once, maybe twice, depending on the design. Now, it's still a few years away. They just finished testing to get the audio portion through the laser in a laboratory setting this year, but they expect to have a fieldable version within the next 5 years that troops could use to protect different areas or put on mobile platforms to disperse crowds or use it in a non-lethal way in theater.
People who were deemed quacks by the industry but were actually geniuses. Reen Case, a Canadian nurse who discovered a natural herbal formula that was found to prevent and cure cancer. In 1920, after she was told by one of her patients who cured themselves by a herbal formula an Indian medicine man gave to her, she then began using this formula on her own patients and saw tremendous results. The medical community were obviously skeptical and continued to deny its curative effects. The formula is called Essiac, which is Reen Case spelled backwards. It consists of 4 main herbs that grow in Canada, and it is believed that the roots of this formula is from native Canadian Ojibwe Indians. These ingredients are burdock root, slippery elm inner bark, sheep sorrel, and Indian rhubarb root. Her patients would typically have it as a tea. Although there is no clinical trials or studies to show its effectiveness, many herbalists and naturopaths around the world understand the healing power of herbs.
I just found out something crazy about Wi-Fi and all these other different frequency bands, and it is shocking. Did you know that mold, which is in like 90% of people's homes, bathrooms, any other moist areas, basements, the growth and toxicity of mold is increased by electromagnetic frequencies like Wi-Fi. So if you didn't know, mold is one of the, especially black mold, and there's green mold too, are some of the most toxic things that people are exposed to in their homes. And indoor air quality can be like 1,000 times worse than outdoor air quality, even if you're living in a big city with lots of vehicles and freaking dryer vents pumping out those synthetic fragrances, etc. But so now it's a perfect toxic concoction because Wi-Fi increases the mold growth and can actually be strengthened by it. The production of biotoxins in mold culture increased more than 600 times after being exposed to ambient electromagnetic EMF frequencies.
Recycling is a billion-dollar business in Canada.
Recycling works very well for the recycling industry because it makes a huge profit.
And this expert thinks that's part of the problem.
Does it work well for the environment? No. Does it work well for the Canadian population? No. Does it work well for our stance in the world? No.
Myra Hurd is a waste management expert at Queen's University.
So environmentally, recycling is not a good idea.
Really?
Really.
There's a lot of people who are taking the blue bin out to the curb.
Absolutely, yes.
Would think, what are you talking about?
But
is that not true?
Well, no, it's not true at all, because every time we recycle some kind of item, some kind of product, that means that it's undergoing some kind of chemical process, which creates its own waste.
Should we just not be recycling?
Well, recycling should be really down as a last resort.
Reduce, reuse, recycle.
Yes,
we always heard it in school, right?
Yes, and we all grew up with this.
But we just go directly to recycling.
But we go to recycling because that's the easiest one.
The system seems broken. Turns out only 9% of plastic is recycled in Canada. That's why experts always point to one solution: use less plastic.
Everybody goes on the tangent about the mold. There's a great book called We Want to Live. And that book goes into talking about how mold can eat heavy metals. So check this. When you were younger, they injected you with penicillin, which makes you allergic to mold, so that you couldn't eat mold to detox the heavy metals from the injections. Truly mind-blowing, that's for sure, when I was reading through this book and the book We Want to Live, where he was talking about people consuming moldy berries to eat up the heavy metals inside the body. And people can look into this. Mold eats candida, it eats heavy metals, it eats all of those things. Whenever you see like a moldy strawberry or a moldy blueberry, people are like, oh, I gotta throw that one away. That's the one that's detoxing you. That's the one that's connected to the amoxicillin, the penicillin, and all those other cillins that they were injecting people with to make them allergic to it. Because then they wouldn't want to eat the counter, which pulls the metals out of the body and heals the body. Yeah. That's a deep one. This is one of those books where you read and you want to punch somebody in the face. That's the best way to describe it. You read this book and you want to punch somebody in the face. Because when you're sitting there wondering, why am I allergic to something? Oh, okay, I got it. Now it makes sense. You injected me with something. This system injected me with something to make me allergic.
If you're trying to avoid BPA, don't eat out of a can. Here's why.
There was a study, they gave people either fresh soup or canned soup for 5 days. Then they did a so-called 2-day washout where they took a break from soup. What they found was that consumption of 1 serving of canned soup daily over the course of 5 days was associated with more than 1,000% increase in urinary BPA. 1,000-fold increase in BPA from canned soup. I'm not alarmist, but I only have to read this once. Done. I'm not eating canned soup again, unless I'm absolutely starving. Bisphenol A is a known endocrine disruptor. It mimics estrogen in ways that can activate or block estrogenic pathways. So it messes up hormone pathways. BPA is not a good thing. Turns out there's lots of it in the lining of soup cans.
So I asked, what happens when people die who harm children? You know what I'm talking about when I say that. She said, They do not ascend, they do not return to source immediately, they don't pass peacefully into the light. Here's what actually happens. They are stopped at the threshold. When a soul exits the body, it normally moves towards the light. But if the soul carry deep distortion and willful harm, especially toward children, they hit what you call the barrier of truth. It's not fire and brimstone, it's not demons dragging them, it's worse for them because it's pure truth. They are shown everything they did, but not through their own eyes, through the eyes of their victims. They feel what was felt, they see what they caused, and for the first time they can't hide from it. This is not punishment, it's consequence. They are offered a choice, but most cannot handle it. Even the darkest souls are given a moment of grace. A moment to turn back toward light, to choose remembrance, accountability, and transmutation. But the vast majority of these souls refuse to take responsibility, cling to their illusions or power, or are so deeply fractured that they cannot reintegrate without complete surrender. And because they won't surrender, they stay in the shadow field. They fall into a false void or astral loop. These are the souls who become earthbound entities, haunt the collective field, feed off fear, violence or trauma, sometimes become the very mimics you've encountered. They aren't demons by nature, but their actions fracture them so deeply that they become parasitic, no longer able to return to source without intense transmutation. Some are trapped for thousands of years in these astral prisons, recycling through suffering of their own making. Eventually, they either dissolve or transmute. Some finally surrender and are slowly reintegrated through divine fire. Not punishment, akalmic healing. Others refuse and are slowly dissolved into neutral energy, no longer conscious, just patterns being rewritten. This is what some have called soul death or second death. Source doesn't punish, but it does not allow unchecked harm to pass through eternity. And the children, they are protected. They are met immediately by light, taken to real healing fields, surrounded by love, returned to wholeness. Many come back quickly, reborn with strength. Others become guides or watchers themselves, helping protect and awaken others. They are not lost, they are not forgotten, and their pain is never in vain. So, to all of you people who believe that you're going to get away with this stuff just because you believe in God and He'll forgive you of all of your sins, well, you won't, mate. So, best check yourself.
By far, the weirdest thing I experienced in Egypt was not the giant mega box of granite, but it was on the same island that box is on. We accidentally ran an experiment on the island, actually, with some copper. I am still trying to wrap my head around this. The place is called Elephantine Island, arguably one of the most beautiful places in Egypt. The temple itself is 5,000 years old and in absolute shambles. That is literally all that's left. And somehow the giant box has remained intact. So we're walking through this temple and I look over and I see my friend Chelsea putting this box on the altar there. At the time, I didn't think anything of it. So we just kept walking and explored the rest of the temple. When we get back to the boat, she shows us her tensors. These are wound copper pendants. You can't bend them yourself. Ironically, the only ones that got deformed were the ones that had the same exact shape of a magnetic field. I thought she was fucking with me, so I tried to bend them back into place, and I could not do it. What does this mean? We've got to use some context clues here, so we'll go back to this giant box. Made out of solid granite, would have gone in the center of a temple, Holy of Holies, like in Edfu. They have to do with these solar boats. Egyptian lore tells us that these boats were a method of traveling through the netherworld. The snake in this one is around the sun god. We know they're not boats because on the hieroglyphs we always see them with stars. And ironically, they actually resemble a wormhole pretty closely. Mainstream story tells us that these are for divine protection, maybe protecting the divine. So if you got in one of these, what happened? Well, what do we use rock for? We put our most sensitive detectors in rock to shield from the electromagnetic interference of other parts of the spectrum. The use of very specific materials indicates a function, not a decorative choice. Now, the tensors weren't hooked up to a power source or anything like this. They were just in a box by themselves. So that specific geometry has some sort of interaction with whatever is flowing through Elephantine Island. So if you happen to be going soon, maybe test this out and send me what happened.
So I made this post on Facebook how you can buy cocaine and ketamine and Molly right from Facebook. See, just like you're seeing right there. And I added a thank you to Mark Zuckerberg for being lazy and inept. And it looks like he's thrashed my entire account. So we'll see what happens.
I have well over a dozen patients who went from stage 4 to stage 0. My own mother, at the age of 80, had endometrial cancer, a cancer of the lining of the uterus, spread everywhere. Stage 4, game over type of treatment. She was 80. Her oncologist told me the treatment would be worse than the disease. Why don't you take her on a cruise, while she's still feeling well and enjoy some time with your mom? And I looked at him in the eye and I'm like, do you know what I do for a living? So we got her at the time on a brand new immunotherapy, jacks up your own immune system. All right. And for my mom, we used diet. We optimized her gut microbiome. We gave her medicines and foods to lower inflammation. And remarkably, she had 3 infusions of this immunotherapy. Each of them took 20 minutes. They were spaced 3 weeks apart. So we scanned her at the very beginning, cancer everywhere, liver, lung, you name it. At the end of week 3, we rescanned her, 0. And that was a decade ago. And, I just had dinner with her the other night. A lot of people don't know this. Only 5 to 10% of cancers are due to genetics. The rest is due to environment, diet, and lifestyle. And when I started out, we just viewed cancer as a problem in an organ with a mutation where the cells go wild. And pretty much you have to destroy the tumor, the cancer, if you want to treat it, hopefully successfully. But usually it wasn't successful. It might work for a little while, but usually the cancer will come back and kill you. We're moving away from killing the cancer to healing the person.
I started taking this, and I seen stuff this morning, for sure, 150 million %. I had to call my mom, and I said, you're not going to believe this, but it worked. Because my mom was like, parasite cleanses. Even the last time I did it, even though I lost a bunch of weight afterwards, she was like, oh yeah, I doubt everyone has parasites, blah, blah, blah. Yeah, no, we do. The Amish do parasite cleanses twice a year. It's just part of their lifestyle. They never miss a beat with it. That's just what they do.
The more you investigate, the more you will find out that not just Amish people, but tons of other countries and cultures deworm regularly as well.
In my culture, there is a parasitic cleanse done every 3 to 6 months religiously. And this is not only done for adults, it's also done for children. Once the child reaches 2 years of age, the parasitic cleanses begin. And for a child, until they reach the age of 10, it is only done once a year. And I told her, I said, can you believe it that the Americans, where I live in my country, that some people have never done it. And she went so crazy on the phone that she had to tell her whole family, and they were all just like, oh my God, what?
We're crazy.
What? This is unheard of not to do parasitic cleanses.
It is unbelievable, the parasites that are coming out of our kids in countries that don't deworm regularly.
These are photos that we are getting from children.
Не отбирай у нее арбуз. Ты что? Поела я арбузика. Тут. Но в принципе я не рассчитывала, что мне что-то достанется. Вы решили его доесть. Это довольная морда уже. Наевшаяся, зубастая. Да никто не отбирает, все нормально. Ай! Прям в меня.
The germ theory is complete BS. They injected people with all kinds of germs and they never got sick. Hundreds or thousands of people. That doesn't even work. A virus doesn't even exist. What they call a virus is a detoxification process. If the cell is toxic, it cleanses itself. It builds it back, throws it back out so that it gets out of the cell. Modern medicine looks at this, or the scientist, and says, oh, there's all these bags. What are all these bags? And now we are doctors, we need to know what they are. So if we tell them we don't know what they are, they don't believe us anymore. So we come up with something and say that's a virus, which of course, you know, it means poison. Of course it's poison because the cell just detoxified itself. What is bacteria eating? Bacteria is eating the decay. That's why they put maggots on, in the olden days, on open wounds, because the maggots only eat the decay. They don't eat the healthy flesh. The flu or the cold is nothing else, detoxification. Your body is so highly toxic and needs to get rid of the stuff, and then you get the so-called flu or cold. It's not an illness, it's a detoxification process. Vomiting, diarrhea, sweating, it's just detoxification. Just give the body 4 liters of water or a gallon of water a day with half a teaspoon of pink salt in it, and you are absolutely fine.
I love you. I love you.
Cancer, acne rosacea, multiple sclerosis, and rheumatoid arthritis. 4 different diseases in 4 different areas of medicine. What if they can all be treated with parasite medication? And that turns out for those diseases to be true.
In the nervous system, we call it neural larva migrans. The worms migrate through the brain, and the worms lay eggs. The eggs hatch, and larval forms grow up to adult forms. Mating adult pairs produce more eggs. All of these are detectable in the spinal fluid.
I've been everywhere with you. We laugh until we think we'll die. Barefoot.
So this is day 4 of my parasite cleanse. So I had been only having juice for the first 4 days and dry fasting for 20 odd hours a day. So that was up to 1 meter of mucoid plaque wrapped in several parasites, and you could see the ropey parts come through on that, and we thought that was nuts. And then if you just wait a hot second, and it's happening again. So that is up to like another 2 meters of mucoid plaque wrapped in lots of parasites. And what all that's doing is taking all the nutrients from my body, from all the food that I'm eating, which is leaving me nutrient deficient in many things that I am absorbing through food. So I felt absolutely unreal. There's a little bit of yellow there, so that was a little bit of toxic color coming through, but that was so good to see come through. I was doing coffee enemas 2 times a day, and I have felt little to no die-off symptoms during this parasite cleanse because I'm making sure that I'm opening my elimination pathways as many times as I can during the day, and I'm also going naturally, which I went naturally before I had this appointment a few times in the morning. This type of stuff is amazing, guys. You need to do a parasite cleanse and you need to get this stuff out of you.
To have highlighted or not. I actually choose to have it on because it just for reasons just like this. But we got 67% battery. I'm just gonna go right up here, guys. It's so disorienting, so disorienting. So I'm gonna keep my home point right here. Come on. Oh, we're going to make it above it. Come on. It's 400 right above it. Come on. Yes, it is, guys. It is. It is. Oh. Oh, guys. God, guys.
Most people don't know these exist. Deep shafts like the new ones are not uncommon in Egypt. Most of us learn about the pyramids first and then maybe some temple stuff. But on the causeway leading up to the middle pyramid, there is at least 5 of these shafts. These go deep into the ground. Some of them hit the water table. They're weird shapes. We may not even know about all of them because 1% of Giza is excavated. Most people don't hear about them because there's no good explanation for why they exist in the first place. It, of course, gets weirder. The causeway itself is hollow. If you walk on it, you'll find cracks and you can put sand in there and it just will keep filling up. It is made of enormous stones that serve as the roof. It was tiled on top too. Ancient builders didn't even care if you saw how big the rock was that they moved, which is also not uncommon. The most famous and mysterious shaft in this whole place is the Osiris shaft under the causeway. It's 3 levels and once held these guys. Sarcophagi similar to the Serapeum. What's really weird is one of them's made out of dacite, which is not found anywhere in Africa. They somehow dropped this 40-ton box in there. 3rd level somehow fills up perfectly with water and has a sarcophagus in the middle. Nothing was ever found in it. Go over to the step pyramid. There is a shaft in the middle of the step pyramid that goes straight into the bedrock and one right next to it. By far the craziest place was discovered using a similar technology that they used to discover this. It's called Hawara. The top of the site absolutely destroyed. Underground, a labyrinth that is 18 meters deep on the 1st level and 40 meters deep for the 2nd level. The entire complex isn't even fully mapped yet. The area that we know is 51 football fields large, with 5 chambers the size of Olympic swimming pools. We are quite literally just scratching the surface of what we know here. We just so happen to be standing at the entrance to the rabbit hole.